Welcome to yet another edition of Cooking with Dr. Tucker, COVID-19 edition. At some point, maybe I'll get brave enough to also videotape myself doing this, but for now, we're at this. So, today I'm going to show you how to make a tuna tartare. Tartare basically uses raw ingredients, so I'm not actually cooking, except for I'm going to be cooking the tortillas a little bit, but this dish is almost all raw materials. Whenever I go out to eat at a restaurant, if there is tartare on the menu, there's about a 70% chance that I am actually going to order that dish. And I specifically like tuna tartare. And when I go to restaurants, they're presented a lot of different ways. So I'm going to show you 3 ways that I do presentation of tuna tartare. So if you wanted to make it one week, you could do a tuna tartare or martini. Sometimes it's called that if it's put in a martini glass, and I'm going to show you a couple other ways to do it. So it starts with really fresh ingredients. I bought this ahi tuna. Ahi tuna is the best cut of tuna, and that's what you should really use for a tartare. I absolutely hate when I get a tartare in a restaurant where they use a inferior cut. It is expensive. This particular piece cost me about $13. It is 0.35 of a pound, so about a third of a pound of tuna. And I think Wegman generally sells it for about $40 for a full pound. So I also have some small peppers, small sweet peppers, and I have an avocado. I have cilantro. I have some tortillas I'm going to use in 2 of the different tuna concepts. Actually, possibly 3. Salt and pepper, of course. Sriracha mayo, which you can make yourself, but I just happen to have a bottle of it. Soy sauce or amino acids, which is what I actually use. Black sesame seed, and of course sesame seed oil. And did I mention cilantro? There's some cilantro there. Okay, now for the first part of putting it together. I'm going to actually make the tartare first and put it in the refrigerator until everything else is done. So I have removed the stems from some cilantro, and I have about a 1/4 cup of fresh cilantro here. I have cut the tuna into little cubes, and that's where we're going to start. So first thing is I'm going to put all this lovely tuna into a nice stainless steel bowl for mixing. I'm going to put a little bit of soy sauce, like a teaspoon. If this is actually amino acids, which are the same. Secret ingredient I use to make it have a little bit more of a authentic taste is sesame oil. You only need 3 or 4 drops. And now I'm going to put a little bit of this, about half of this cilantro. I'm probably going to use the rest for garnish and stuff. Toss it in so that the soy and the sesame seed oil are nice and mixed in there. Put a little bit of salt. Remember, soy has salt in it, so you don't want to put too much. Put a little bit of fresh ground pepper. Stir it up a little bit more. This is what you're ending up with. If you can see it there. And what I like to do also is put just a squeeze of lemon juice. It seems to, or lime juice, seems to brighten up the flavor a bit. I'm going to stir that around, and I'm going to put that in the fridge, and we'll deal with it in a minute. For step 2, I'm going to fry up some corn tortillas, sort of deep fry them a little bit so that I can make chips. So I took the flour tortillas there, and I cut some up into quarters for chips, and I also cut some up in thin strips that are going to be strips for the top of the tuna tartare. So I have crisped up my corn tortillas. In truth, I would rather do this with wontons, but I did not have any wontons available, wonton wrappers. Personally, that is my preference with tuna tartare, so in lieu of that, we're going to use the corn tortillas. Okay, next step I did is I took my avocado out, took the meat out of the avocado, and because I'm going to present it two ways, I cut some little chunks here, and then I also made not quite a guacamole because it doesn't have anything else except for lime juice, salt, pepper, cilantro, and avocado in here. It's more of just a base that I'm going to use to prepare the tuna tartare. I generally, if I use garlic in this, I do it very lightly because you don't want to overpower some of the other tastes. Okay, the first presentation I can show you is the tuna tartare in a martini glass, sometimes called a tuna martini. So basically I have a martini glass and I'm going to put the avocado mix at the bottom. Now I'm going to take some of this tuna that I stirred up. I'm actually going to add a few black sesame seeds first. Just sprinkle them in there. And I'm going to stir that around a little bit. And then put some of this in the glass. I've seen them at different restaurants. Usually they're only going to put, you know, half a cup or so of tuna tartare or even less in there. You want to sort of get it in an even layer. Then I'm going to move this so it's out of the way. You want to put some mix of these peppers along the top. Just a nice little solid layer of peppers. I'm going to put a sprinkle of seed over that again. And then the next thing I'm going to do is put a squirt of the sriracha mayo. Put a little squirt over it, just so there's a layer of that little spiciness. And then I'm going to arrange these somehow where it's going to be a little flattering. And it's okay if they have little curves on them, it adds to the character. By the way, you should have salted these. So you can add them in any way you want. You could break them up and make it even a little more small. You can crisscross them, you can do whatever you want. And then I'm going to add a drizzle of sriracha from one side to the other. And there you have a tuna tartare in a martini glass. Now for this next presentation, I'm actually going to use a form. A form is going to help keep it all together. Hopefully, we'll see how it goes. I already put the avocado in and I tapped it down with a spoon so it's flat against the plate. It's about a ½ inch high of avocado mix. Now I'm going to add my tuna tartare, and I want it just above this rim so that I can pack it down with a spoon, and hopefully it's all going to gel together there. So I want to really smush it in there because I want this to come out of the form in a perfectly circular shape. I'm going to still do the same with the peppers. Put a nice bunch of peppers on top. Squish it down a little bit. And then you pray to God that it comes up when the form is lifted off and doesn't fall apart. This one's tricky. I lost a pepper over here. I'm going to put it back on. If you're having a party or something, this is probably going to fall apart too much, so I wouldn't recommend it. In this case, I'm going to take only a couple of these, crisscross them on the top, small ones, just for a little crunch. It's always good to have different textures. I'm then going to put a nice drizzle across the plate and this is not the best one to drizzle with, but you get the idea. Something that you can do also is put a little wasabi dots. Get some wasabi. I'm putting some sesame seed here. Get some wasabi and just put a little wasabi dots around. And then I'm going to lay a few chips here. Just enough so that the person will have a little something to eat the tuna tartare with. And option number 3 is to make what some people call tuna nachos. So what you would do in that case is you're going to mix all the ingredients but put them right on the chips that are on a plate. So you're going to put a few pieces of tuna on each nacho. You want to make sure they're separate pieces. People don't want to eat and have it all go into their mouth at once. And this is probably the most inexpensive for restaurants to do this because they can get away with putting very little tuna on. You then want to mix in whatever ingredients you have. In this case, I cut some avocado for this. So we're going to mix in a little avocado. I don't mix this if I'm doing it on the nachos. I don't do it ahead of time because you don't want the tuna and avocados to mix and start tasting like each other. So you got your nice avocado pieces, your nice tuna pieces, and then we're going to incorporate the bell pepper. These are sweet bell, mini bell peppers, cut very finely, and if they spill over on the dish, that's generally fine because you can use them as garnish. So you got 4 pieces here. And I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of cilantro over it. You could even put a slice of lemon on the side if you wanted. That always looks good. And then I'm going to take my squeezed bottle of sriracha and just take a line up and down. So that they are often called tuna nachos, but it's actually tuna tartare served right on a tortilla, or a wonton, which is actually the preferred way. So for the end product, we have our tuna martini. We have our little tuna tartare served sort of in a rather traditional way in a little tower here with some crisped up tortillas, corn tortillas. And then we have a tuna nacho, or it's basically tuna tartare with avocado on some crispy corn tortillas. Again, I would highly prefer wonton wrappers. You simply fry up the wonton about the same way you would these. Hopefully you enjoyed this.